When the Great Pyramid was made, however, Egyptian construction techniques were at their best. The Greek historian Herodotus tells us machines were used to lift the stones to the top. While some levers and cranes might have been used to shift the blocks in their final positions, however, engineers think it is more likely a ramp was used to get the stones up the side of the pyramid. The shape of the ramp has always puzzled scientists, however. A straight ramp would be too long and require more material than the pyramid itself. For this reason, archaeologists have pondered alternative ramp shapes. Perhaps one that zigzagged up the front, or perhaps a spiral around the outside of the pyramid. The problem is that any ramp that hid the corners and sides of the pyramid would make it very hard for Egyptians to make sure they were building along straight lines. Also, turning the sledges around corners would be a challenge. The French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin suggests, in addition to the known internal structures of the pyramid, the Egyptians constructed an internal spiral ramp, with notches left temporarily open at each corner to let in air and light. In his theory, the bottom third of the pyramid was built with a straight ramp. The stone of the ramp was then disassembled and moved up through the tunnels to build the top of the structure. Cranes at the notches made turning the sledges easy. Is Houdin right? A microgravity survey of the pyramid revealed a surprising anomaly, a spiral shape that might be the internal ramps. Scientists are now working on tests that will prove the idea one way or the other. When the results are known, perhaps this last mystery of the Great Pyramid will finally be put to rest. A legend tells us that in the ancient city-state of Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar had just married a new queen. She came from a land of high mountains and green hills, and the flat Mesopotamian plain of Babylon left her homesick and depressed. But the king had a grand idea. What if he built a mountain for the queen? A man-made mountain which would be a garden consisting of many levels and terraces that would overhang each other. This hanging garden would be filled with large trees, green plants, and flowers. The king's engineers found this easier said than done. Unlike many ancient cities, Babylon had little stone for building. It had plenty of clay, however, and this was mixed with chopped straw, then poured into molds and left to harden into bricks. In sunny Babylon, where the rain rarely fell, these mud bricks worked well. Any building constructed of them, if exposed to water, however, would quickly erode away. How could they be used for a garden where the plants would need continual irrigation? The engineers decided to use the few stone slabs they had under any section that was to be planted. Over that they laid a bed of reeds, then a layer of asphalt, a level of tiles, and finally a sheet of lead. When that was done, they piled soil on top of it deep enough to support the biggest trees, bushes, and other plants. The second problem the engineers faced was getting the water up to the top of the gardens. Some descriptions suggest they used a screw pump. However, it is thought that the screw pump wasn't invented until Archimedes thought of it 300 years later. Instead, the gardens may have used a chain pump. It might have worked like the one we see here, using buckets to carry the water upward from level to level. The garden has been gone for over 2,000 years, and we only have a vague description of what it looked like. This hasn't stopped artists from envisioning it for us in numerous illustrations. However it appeared, it must have impressed those who saw it enough that it was placed on the list of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. We can only hope that this magnificent gift cured the queen of her homesickness. In 456 BC, the Greeks finished construction of a new temple at Olympia to the king of their gods, Zeus. The temple lacked a focal point, however, and it was decided to add a statue dedicated to the god. When the statue was completed in 432 BC, it was more than 40 feet in height and filled one end of the temple to the roof. The grand statue, which depicted Zeus sitting on a throne, was made of gold and ivory plates attached to a wooden frame. The statue was so magnificent that it was included on the list of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The people of the ancient Greek city of Ephesus were proud of their metropolis along the Mediterranean. They were also proud of their patron goddess Artemis. The Ephesians built a series of temples to her, each one more impressive than the one before. When in the 7th century BC a flood destroyed the current temple, it was replaced with one more grand. The new structure was built using marble. A new statue of the goddess was sculpted to grace the interior, and outside, 36 of the building's columns were meticulously carved with figures in relief. Unfortunately, a young man decided to make himself famous by the temple's destruction. Herodotus carried a torch to the building one night, climbed up into its wooden roof, and set the beams on fire. The temple burned. The very night of the fire, July 21st, 356 BC, was also the evening the great Greek conqueror Alexander the Great was born. As time went by, a legend appeared, saying that the reason the goddess didn't come to save her temple was not because she wasn't concerned about it, but because she was otherwise occupied making sure of Alexander's safe arrival into this world. This morning, the citizens of Ephesus stood before the smoldering ruins. Instead of being ashamed of his act, Herodotus proclaimed what he had done, wishing to become famous as the man that had destroyed the great temple. He was tried, executed, and the Ephesians passed a law that anyone that even mentioned his name would be put to death. The law failed to blot out the arsonist's name from history. However, the Ephesians did do something that caused this terrible act to fade from memory. They cleared the site and rebuilt the shrine, making it even larger and more magnificent than the temple that had been destroyed. Today, we know it as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. In 353 BC, when the king of Halicarnassus, Mausolus, died, his queen, Artemisia, was inconsolable. Then she looked at his tomb, which was already under construction, and realized that she could use it to honor him. She sent messages throughout the Greek world to persuade the best sculptors and architects to come and work on the king's memorial. She employed only the finest craftsmen and spared no expense in making his resting place the finest tomb the world had ever seen. They labored for years, carving beautiful images into the stone walls and creating marvelous statues made of marble. The few works that have survived today, despite the damage they've accumulated through the centuries, testify to the artist's dedication and skills. Before the tomb was finished, however, the queen herself died. The sculptors decided that even with their patron gone, they would finish the tomb, as it was not only a memorial to the king, but to the art of sculpture itself. What they built was both beautiful and unique. A set of steps flanked by stone lions led to the tomb itself. Built of white marble, it was decorated with dozens of statues. On top of the roof, 150 feet in the air, was a chariot carrying the likenesses of the royal couple themselves. The tomb is long gone, and many artists have envisioned it in different forms. At the top of each one, however, is the chariot, with the queen and her beloved husband riding together forever through the centuries. In 305 BC, the island of Rhodes, in the Mediterranean, successfully fought off an invasion. To commemorate the victory, the people of the island decided to erect a huge statue to their patron god, Helios. Today, nobody is exactly sure how the statue was posed. Did he hold a torch aloft, or simply look out to sea? The only thing we know for sure is that the statue did not stand with his legs stretched across the harbor entrance, as was depicted in many medieval drawings. Not only would such a pose be considered awkward for a god, construction would have required that the harbor be shut down, an economic impossibility. Most likely the statue was located near the harbor entrance or perhaps on a breakwater. Standing 100 foot high on top of a 50-foot marble pedestal, its bronze plating over an iron skeleton would have shone brightly in the sunlight. It would have been visible to ships many miles at sea. It was the pride of the city and had taken 12 years to build. The people of Rhodes thought it would stand forever. Sadly, only 56 years after it had been erected, an earthquake rocked the island and the statue collapsed. The people, fearing they had somehow offended the god, decided not to rebuild it. Its remains littered the ground where it had fallen for centuries, until it was finally sold and hauled away for scrap. The city of Alexandria in Egypt was a center of trade in the ancient Mediterranean world. Its most recognizable landmark was the great Pharaoh's lighthouse built to guide ships safely into the city's bay. At the top, a fire provided a beacon of light at night and a column of smoke during the day, visible to ships many miles at sea. It also served as a tourist attraction, and many visitors to the city climbed its heights. Sightseers might start by walking up a 600-foot-long ramp. There, the visitor might see a dedication authored by the architect. Legend has it that the king refused to let any name but his own on the building. The architect fooled him by putting the king's name in plaster over the architect's words. As the years went by, the plaster chipped away, eventually revealing the architect's message chiseled in stone. Inside the lowest section of the building, tourists could walk up a spiral ramp to an observation deck perhaps 250 feet above the sea. Mounted on the four corners here were statues of the fish-tailed sea god Triton. Guests could purchase food and souvenirs on this deck, perhaps one of the many coins with the pharaoh's likeness imprinted on it. Tourists that wished to climb the next section took stairs up an 8-sided tower to a smaller observation deck. With a height of more than 300 feet, visitors had a wonderful view of the city. Undoubtedly they could see the famous Library of Alexandria, an ancient center for learning. It is thought that the library was the largest in the world at the time, with hundreds of thousands of books in the form of scrolls. A round tower was the uppermost section of the lighthouse. At the top was a fire tended night and day. A large mirror, thought to be made of polished bronze, helped project the light into a beam. It is said that the mirror could be used as a weapon to concentrate sunlight and set enemy ships ablaze as they approached the city. However, most historians doubt this claim. At the very top of the lighthouse, at a height of over 400 feet, was a statue of the god of the sea, Poseidon. Until it was destroyed by an earthquake in the 14th century, the Pharos was the pride of Alexandria. For almost 1,500 years, it was a comforting sight for sailors, leading them to the safety of the harbor, even on the darkest nights.